Like all John Carney movies, it's about music connecting people. Music being a tool to have for people to find their own tribe, to find their own way into each other's lives. The biggest theme in the movie is the idea that through music and through art, people can find connections to each other and can find meaning in their lives. And each one of the characters in their own way finds a route to who they are in the world, and who they are to the people around them through music. Flora is a mother, but she doesn't really know it. She has had a child when she was very young. She kind of grew up while the child was growing up, and there's an argument to be made that she didn't grow up as fast as her son did. And Max is now kind of a borderline criminal, a juvenile delinquent. And she has also kind of come to a point in her life where she doesn't really have anything that she's really enjoying about her life. And that's kind of where the movie starts. It starts with her in search of some meaning in her life. And she finds it through music, but through music, she finds her son. Max is at a point in his life where he can become a kind of hardcore criminal, or he can find his way back to his mother and find his way back to growing up and find his way back to doing something constructive with his life. He idolizes a local rapper who is also a drug dealer. He is more apt to take something illegally than to work for it. He's not really rooted in school. He's not really rooted with his mother or his father. And he's kind of at the point that every parent fears for their child, where they think that they can really go down a dark route, which would end in disaster for them. Jeff is a guitarist, songwriter, musician who lives in Los Angeles, California. And he's also gone through some hardships in his life. He's kind of come to peace with who he is, and with the fact that his dreams haven't worked out exactly in the way that he thought they would when he started out. But now he's living his life at a nice, peaceful house on the top of a mountain somewhere in Los Angeles, and is making a decent living giving guitar lessons over Zoom. Flora comes across a guitar, which she initially tries to pawn off to a music store, and when that doesn't work out, she tries to give it to her son for his birthday. And he doesn't want it either, so she kind of picks it up herself and starts playing, and then realizes she doesn't know how to play, so she scopes the internet to try to find someone who could teach her, and that's how she comes across Jeff. John's movies are very much unique and identifiable because they really connect the characters and the viewers to these characters musically. And it's a question of what the magic of music is, like how it really pulls us in emotionally in a way that can't be accomplished through any other device.
Flora and Son is a movie it's sort of a love story actually between a mother and a son, and it's about their fractured relationship and how music sort of brings them together. The themes, I would say music, family. It's sort of a coming of age film for Max, but also for Flora in a strange way. It's about her trying to come to grips with being a mother and finally accepting that about herself and stepping into that role. I play Flora, and she is very flawed. She's kind of a wild child, never really grew out of her teenage years. Lots of partying, lots of booze. She has a 15-year-old son who is also a little bit of a troublemaker, and they're more like a brother-sister kind of relationship than a typical mother and son. But throughout the course of the movie, she starts to really come out of herself and become the mother she didn't know she could be. At the start of the film, Flora is in a nightclub dancing, doing her best to woo a man. And she's sort of in her typical routine of, partying on the weekends and not doing much with her life. So yeah, she's sort of a mess, a mess, a wild child. That's what I like to say. Max is just like his mother, troublemaker, always getting into trouble. He's on probation. He's always doing the wrong thing, but he's never really been taught how to be anything else. But he's creative, and so is she. And when she starts to discover how creative she is, I think they connect on that level, and he starts to see her in a new way, like, oh, my mum is actually kind of cool, instead of she's just really annoying me. When Flora meets Jeff, she's very cynical. She's very Irish. She makes fun of him a lot. And he's much more earnest. He's very American, and but also very set in his ways. He sort of lived his life and settled into what it is, whereas she's sort of searching to become something or to find herself. So he kind of brings her on that journey and helps her discover different parts of herself and takes her out of her comfort zone and helps her realize that she's got a lot to give and a lot of worth and a lot of creativity in her. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is incredible, and I'm such a fan of him, and I always have been from Third Rock from the Sun ever since I was young. And he's just a veteran actor. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I'm so glad that he was cast, because those Zoom scenes were hard, because you're on a computer and you're trying to create chemistry with someone that you've never really met. And he was just incredible about keeping it buoyant and fun and fresh. And he's also an incredible guitarist and a beautiful singer. I think he's like sort of shown a side to himself that nobody's seen before in this film. And yeah, we were very, very lucky to have him. I was made aware of the script because it had come through my agent, who's also John's agent and Jack's agent. And he was just saying, you've got to read it, it's amazing. And I ended up reading it, and it was 10 out of 10. It was incredible. He's amazing. I really loved working with him, and he knows this, and I told him I want to work with him again. But John is so impulsive in the best way possible. He's so creative, and it's so spontaneous and in the moment. And he has a way of, being very relaxed, but also sort of pushing the limits of the story on the day on set. So everyone feels like they're very involved. There's loads of questions. Everyone gets to sort of give their input. There were so many days we were all, hanging around Video Village, watching the scenes, and people were going, what do you think about this? Oh my God, what can we do here? And it's just a very inclusive, fun feeling. It's what movie making should be. And unfortunately, not a lot of the time it is. So he just kind of brings this fun energy to the set. And then he also involved me in the songwriting, and he was like, I want you to write the song. Like, you come up with some lyrics, and I'm like, well, we'll get into the studio and we'll all write together. And it was just such a different process that I've ever had before. What I love about this movie is that it's really funny and really unique in its humor, but it is also really optimistic, and it has a big heart, and it's perfect 90 minutes. It's sort of like a classic film. in its length and its storytelling. And I think people are responding to it because it's everything that you want in a film, and it's not it's not dark. It's authentic, but it's not, depressing. It's got a beautiful happy ending, and I think when people sort of go on the journey, they're laughing, they're crying, but they end up feeling uplifted after, and that's what I'm really proud of.
Flora and Her Son is a Irish film set in Dublin. It's about a young mother by the name of Flora and her son Max, and their journeys and struggles with identity and growing up and emancipating themselves, and just finding who they are. Themes of family and identity. I think, it's very focused on the kind of interpersonal relationships between this group of people in a sort of they're like a kind of a dysfunctional family in a way, It's like Flora as the mother, her son Max, and the tension in their relationship, but also the relationship that they both have with Max's father, Ian, who's kind of estranged from Flora, but they sort of have a semi-functional relationship in how they, share him. And then, of course, you have this character, Jeff, who comes in, who's a guitar teacher from LA, and he's doing Zoom lessons with Flora. And so, it's about how all these people kind of are relating to one another, basically, and each finding their identity and their kind of reasons for doing what they do. I play Ian, who is Flora's ex, and he's Max's dad. And Ian's a pretty funny character, I don't think I'm playing him particularly earnestly, but he's like a guy who was in a band 10 years ago and he thought he was hot shit, but things didn't pan out, I think, the way that he had anticipated that they would. So I think he's somebody whose kind of ego has taken a couple of knocks, and maybe he wouldn't admit that to himself, but he's struggling with his own identity and struggling to find his reason for being, basically. Flora is the central character of our film, really, and she is a young Dublin woman who's kind of struggling with the challenge of raising her son as a single mother. And, I think she just kind of has the world on top of her a little bit, and she's trying to find an outlet for some of her frustrations, and she's trying to find a way to connect with her son and trying to find a way to connect with herself, basically. And she begins to explore all that and find ways to do that through music. When we initially meet Ian, it's very clear that they have a really standoffish relationship with one another. But I think that they're still kind of into one another in a way, and there's still an energy between the two of them, so that's really fun. I think it comes across quite humorously, actually. But as the film goes on, I think Ian kind of realizes what he's kind of given up in Flora, and what he's kind of let get away, basically. But as we journey through the movie, I guess they each find a sort of a level in the relationship with one another, and there's a kind of a peace and a sort of a mutual respect and affection, and I think it comes through the music, but also through their love of their son, and that's something that they're always going to share. Whatever happens with their relationship with one another, that's something that they'll always see eye to eye on, is how they love this kid. I think the way music is used in the film is sort of symbolic of its ability to help people to express things in a non-verbal way, you know, like, I don't know, I guess, you know, having music as an outlet can just be incredibly cathartic, and it can be incredibly therapeutic for people. And I think that's a big part of the message of the film. You know, I think for each of these characters, having the music and having the ability to, even if they can't play particularly well, just having the ability to pick it up and to try with it, it sort of unlocks, I don't know, it kind of helps them to, I don't know, it sounds really wanky, but to kind of find themselves, you know. I mean, it feels obviously intrinsically Irish, which I love. I also think it's a very contemporary Irish story, in a sort of a refreshing way. You know, it's nice to see a film about a young single mother who's, like, you know, got this goal that she's striving for, and that she's kind of like pulling people in her life together to help her do it, even in the midst of all these complicated relationships that she has. And in that sense, it's a really heartfelt movie, but in what feels like a kind of a unique way.
The really quick pitch is it's a mother and son story about damage and repair. All I had at the beginning was a woman walking past an old guitar and her taking it home. And it's a real Dublin thing. It's a poor thing, but it seems to me a thing I did a lot when I was young, which is like I couldn't walk past a skip without taking something out of it and bringing it home. And it was a mix of being a bit broke and being a student or being young or whatever, but it was also a thing of like, I can't see that being wasted. If I bring it home to my living room, I'll be a better I'll pick it up later and I'll become a guitar player. Anytime, that's my thing. Like, take it all home because maybe later on it'll be useful. It's a little bit of a hoarder, but that was all I had at the beginning. Was this woman brings home a guitar. Originally, she sold it. She tried to sell it to make money. But then I cut that out because it seemed it was a bit mercantile or whatever. So she doesn't sell it. She repurposes it as a gift, and the story started there, and one by one, as I was sort of writing it, I just added, I looked at her backstory, and I thought about this guy online, and I thought about her best friend, and I started sort of just lending characters into her world, and then some would fall and not make the final cut or the final draft of the script. But it seemed to me that was the sort of shape. It was a woman, her kid, her ex, her best friend, this guy online. And that music would sort of put a circle around that shape and bring everybody in a bit closer throughout the course of the movie. From the minute I spoke to her on Zoom from 3,000 or 6,000 miles away, wherever she was, it was just immediately she got the script, she got the humor, and she so wanted the role that as a writer-director, you're like, when an actor really wants something, that's a perfect place to be, because it's normally the director is trying to convince the actor to do something. And not that it was an exact reverse of this. We were both sort of into her doing it from the beginning. It's lovely when an actor feels like they're that they had to fight a little bit for it, and that they're really dedicated to it, and they want to sort of prove it to themselves and to you and to the audience. That's a lovely place to be in. So from the word go, the second we sort of started talking about the character, Eve was Flora. Young Orén was a very late arrival at the party. And we were like a week out, 2 weeks maybe from shooting, and I was kind of not going to make the film until I found this kid, because it sort of pivots on him, doesn't it, a little bit? And he just, himself and his dad made this tape, and somehow I got it, and he was still. He wasn't. A lot of younger actors move a lot and move their heads and try and prove it and win it through moving, and he just stood. He walked onto his spot and he didn't move his. He was a bit like Spencer Tracy, but a young Dublin millennial version of Spencer Tracy, which sounds ridiculous, but you know what I mean. He was still. He hit the mark, said his lines, and got off. And there was something very spare and to the point about his audition tape. And then I met him, and he's just a lovely kid. I know his dad, and there's a little bit of history there between, you know, he's been in the film industry for a long time. So he's just this natural young kid that kind of came in at the last minute and made me and all of the production team sigh a great sort of sigh of relief. Yeah, you can root for flawed characters nowadays, can't you? It's kind of nice that cinema's gone in that direction. She's definitely a flawed, messed up young mum. But like, what young mother doesn't make mistakes? It's such a minefield raising a kid with all of the privileges and the benefits and the, you know, two parents and aunties and uncles without all that structure. I mean, it's so hard. So yeah, she's a super flawed character, but sort of Eve did her in a great way and did her justice. I don't know. It's interesting. We looked at like James Joyce at Dubliners for this film, where the characters are neither flawed nor heroic. They just sort of are snapshots, beautifully told. And we felt that was the way we were going to approach her. We weren't going to say, let's have a good see her do something really good now to counteract what we just saw her do really brutally a minute ago. We just sort of pointed the camera at this character and sort of observed her from a little bit of a distance. And that was kind of the way we went into her. And so she is flawed, but I think you weirdly do root for her. But I mean, you're just invested in her from the word go. I'm not quite sure why or how those things work, whether it's somebody's face or it's a way they carry. It's just like, you root for them in the way that when you see somebody walking along the street with a pram, you kind of root for them. And I don't think that Flora is necessarily like a fantastic songwriter, and that would be too much of a kind of a fairy tale. Suddenly this girl from the flats is writing these hit songs. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be this girl who found a guitar and sort of repurposed her life a little bit, is able to get up on stage in a pub around the corner from her flats and play a song. That to me is no smaller than winning a Grammy or an Oscar or whatever. It's a massive thing for a woman like Flora to be able to get up, take out a guitar and sing something that she's written. That's a huge leap in her story, and big enough, and really kind of Hollywood. The bigger the story, often the more you lose the delicate balance of what it's like to be an everyday human. So I feel like she's it's a very small triumph in terms of massive stories of people in Hollywood movies, but it's certainly big enough to be life-changing for her. Well, yeah, that was the central conceit of the movie, was somebody who had a neglectful, messed up relationship with her son and sort of needs to find the right tool or the right the right sort of present or the right I guess it's tool to reinvigorate that relationship. And we always think that our kids are amazing just by default, and our relationships are going to be amazing with our kids, and then we start to find out that they're little humans and they're not tethered to us in this way. And I think that's where a whole new phase of parenting starts up again, where you look at them and they're the same size as you now, but they're emotionally so much smaller than you or younger than you. And you kind of look at them and go, Jiminy. I mean, I'm not personally at that stage yet. My kids are still really small, but I imagine it's a very interesting phase of parenting where you kind of go, this child is as big as me now and takes up as much room, but I don't know the child as well as I thought I did, or as I did when she or he were 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. And I just sort of wanted to kind of take a snapshot of that relationship and jump right into it. There she is. She's at a nightclub. She comes home. She's got this 14 or 15-year-old kid, and you're sort of straight into that relationship and what she needs to do to sort of bring the relationship on to the next level and try and fix some of the damage that was done when they were younger. But I thought it was an interesting challenge to sort of take that and push it really far and say, I'm never going to have these characters meet, but I am going to have them sort of fall for each other. And not literally in love, but in their head in love. And that was just a really interesting challenge in terms of setting it up. And then the irony then, of course, I thought originally maybe I should let the actor be in LA Because the story, he's in LA, she's in Dublin. Why not just shoot him in LA? Why not just shoot Zoom? And that immediately became problematic. And as anybody who makes a film knows, when you want to try and do something, you have to fake it. Everything is fake. So we had Joe and Eve together on set in 2 different rooms, and the wires were all going underneath and connecting. So they were actually, to all intents and purposes, were on a Zoom call. But we could manipulate the timeline of that slightly, and we could have, it was actually challenging from a technical point of view. It sounds very simple, like one person's over there, I'm here, there's a wall between us, they're literally coming through onto this laptop in front of me, but then you've got loads of sound challenges about, do I want to hear my voice, or do I want to hear their voice from the laptop speakers? So no, so you have to have a boom operator out there filming her sound and his sound here, so I can mix them when I need to hear. But I'm not going to ever cut to that other person on Zoom. It always is from Flora's perspective. So I wouldn't consider myself a musical fan, but those, when you get the right balance of drama and music, or comedy and music, it's heavenly, and it's almost like that's what cinemas are built for. It's like the singing that moves into music, that moves into dialogue, that moves back out into singing again. It's like, who wouldn't want this?
Well, it's sort of a story about how nothing ever turns out the way you expect in life, and that can hurt or it can be funny. And one way to cope with the topsy-turvy nature of an unexpected life is through playing music and kind of the connections that can come through music, whether it's with a mother and a son, or other relationships. Flora is a hot mess. That's how I would describe her. She's I think she's someone with a really good heart, but whose life has gone ways that she just didn't expect, and is taking a look around and being like, is that all there is? And that's something that I think any human being can relate to. Anybody who's, not a kid anymore, like I'm not a kid anymore. And she's a mom, and she's, I think, again, underneath it all, a really good mom, but has struggled with a relationship with her son, and is just looking for a way to kind of unlock all that warmth and love that really is inside her. And this is a movie about her finding a way to do that through playing the guitar. Well, when I read the script, the songs aren't in the script. They're still writing them. And if it were just anybody that had written this script, I would have been like, yeah, okay, let's see you pull that off. But because it was John Carney who made Once and who made Sing Street, and his musical partner Gary who wrote all those Sing Street songs, when I heard that, I was like, okay, even though these songs aren't written yet, I'm willing to get on board. I believe these are gonna be good. And it's been a real honor to be part of the process, figuring out the music of this movie and watching these songs come together and hearing them. And it's really been a special thing for me. It's not all my jobs that I get to do music like this. And there is something undeniably magical about music. It's just different than straight drama or comedy. Eve is just a delight. The thing about her is she is brutally honest, which is perfect because her character is that way too. But you just don't ever see a dishonest moment in her performance. She just won't do it. And if that means that the scene doesn't work, then we need to figure out a way to make the scene work and be honest. She just won't. She can't. It's like not in her bones to be dishonest. And I love working with an actor like that, because our tendency as thespians is to, be people pleasers and like please an audience, whether that's real or not. And I love an actor that's just only honest. And it makes it really easy to act with her because she's just being so true that you can just fall into the truth kind of together with her. As this Flora character and my character are sort of falling for each other over these Zoom guitar lessons, John wanted to let the audience feel what it's feeling like. And in order to do that, in a movie, you gotta have the characters there together. And so he worked up this motif, this magical cinematic device by which Jeff and Flora can share space and feel those feelings, and the audience can kind of get that chemistry that probably wouldn't happen otherwise if it was just two people in separate rooms. And we've all had that experience, whether it's on Zoom or on the phone, or even, writing letters to a pen pal, where through communication, through conversation, even if it's remote, you feel someone close to you. So this movie manages to visualize that feeling. Doing these scenes that are set on Zoom, because Flora is having these guitar lessons over Zoom, there's a technical challenge. Like, how are you gonna shoot that with one character in Dublin and the other character in Los Angeles? And so there's been 2 sets created, and the 2 sets are actually right next to each other. And there's one camera crew on this set and one camera crew on the other set. And I've got a little in-ear device so I can hear what Eve's saying, and she's got an in-ear device where she can hear what I'm saying. And it's sort of like having a real Zoom call, except cameras are a lot nicer. I remember seeing it, and I've always been a fan of musicals. I grew up liking musicals, but only some of them. I actually dislike most musicals because they can be cheesy. But I love, The Wizard of Oz, and I love Singing in the Rain, and a few others. And I saw once and never seen anything like it. It's like, what is this? You can do this with a musical? You can be this honest? This is like a Cassavetes movie, but it's a musical. And I just thought it was the greatest thing. And I've always wanted to work with him since. I remember when Sing Street came out. I was like, the guy that made Once made, so good. And it reminded me so much of when I was a teenager and in bands in high school and playing music with my friends. Like, this guy. There's a sort of an organic love and natural appreciation for music here that you don't find everywhere. You know where else has this is in the States, is in New Orleans. If you go to New Orleans is a very special city. And the music there just goes really, really deep in the culture. And there's just a natural, everyone's just musical. And everyone's, kind of knows a song or can pick up an instrument. And I'm obviously generalizing, but I love a town like that. It's not really a surprise that, to me, one of the great musical filmmakers of our time, John Carney, is an Irishman. And so to be here working with him is kind of the best way to see this place, it feels like.
I think Flora and her son is about the relationship between a young mother, Flora, and her son, Max, as their relationship develops with music as well. I think music's heavily involved in it as well, in their relationship throughout with other characters and between each other throughout the film. He lives between 2 homes, his mother and his father, and I think he does the things that he does because he doesn't feel loved almost, and I think that's why he mixes around with the wrong crowd. We find Max at the start of the film, he's troubled, he's at his worst. We first see him rob a shop, and he has bad attitude with the shop assistant, and he's an absolute pain to the shop assistant and everyone he comes across. And same with the fight with his mother. I think he's at his absolute worst when we first see him. Flora, I don't think, is a great mother. She tries, but I don't think she is, especially when she forgets Max's birthday and then tries to buy him a guitar to try and win him over. And I think she doesn't know she's not a great mother. She thinks she's doing a good job, but realistically she's not. But I think she definitely improves over the film. Eve is just an absolutely amazing person. She's an amazing actor. It's amazing to see how she plays a character on screen. I think it's amazing. She's a great person to be around and talk to. She's helped me so much throughout the entire process. Helped me with lines. She's been so patient as well. I think Eve's an amazing person to work with. Well, I got on a call with Gary, who's kind of the main music man, and we talked, and I didn't know I was doing a song at all. I mean, I was told, oh yeah, you have to sing, and I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to sing, I've no musical experience. Please get me out of this. But I decided to just give it a shot, and I made my own original song. Well, I didn't technically make it, but I sang it. And yeah, I had to learn GarageBand, and I've learned a lot about music, and I think I've built up a passion for it. Working with director John Carney is absolutely amazing. I mean, he's an amazing director, and it's so great to be able to see a vision that he has and us being able to kind of portray it and put it on a screen. I think that's just absolutely fantastic. It's the wonder of film, really. And I think he's an amazing director to work with, and he's helped me so much.